Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 podcast, where we talk about the lovely city of Fort Worth, Texas. We get into politics, culture, business, news, you name it. If it impacts you, we discuss it. And Zeta's back in the building. What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. Missed you last week, but
Yes.
I think you carried on without me just fine.
Yeah, you know, what'd you think of the Tarrant for Change? I thought their episode was pretty good.
I think they did a good job. I
Yeah.
think they have, the main point that they made about needing to be someone coordinating and collaborating amongst people doing the work on the progressive side of things, I think is absolutely true. And especially that point of things flare up when there are elections happening, but tend to die out otherwise, leaves people kind of flat-footed when it comes to the elections gearing back up again.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they had a good grasp and understanding of how things work. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. How we make this happen, we do 3 short stories, 1 big story, wins and losses. The big story here will be about the filing deadline, which was December 11th. We are recording December 12th, which is Tuesday. So if anything crazy got in the news and you're wondering why we didn't talk about it, it's because we had to do this early as I'm flying out of the country on Friday. I got my vaccines earlier. And
You got a booster and a flu shot?
yeah, and I thought it was going to be cool doing both of them, and I feel kind of weird, not going to lie to you. I went to bed at 9 p.m. yesterday, which is very unlike me.
Well, I'm planning to go and do those things as well before I travel to visit family for the holidays, get my booster for COVID and my flu shot as well. And then I got to get shingles as well because I'm old. You're not old enough for that one yet, I don't think.
I don't even know what shingles mean. That sounds like a Christmas. I thought it was like a Christmas carol or a Christmas.
It comes
stuff.
from like the chickenpox virus, and it can be, if you get shingles, it can be not a lot of fun.
Got
So
it.
as you get older, if you've had chickenpox, I think you specifically need to make sure that you get the shingle shot.
Gotcha. Are you a Christmas person, by the way? Do you have Christmas lights on your house?
Okay, I do, and
I'm
I'm
just
so
curious.
disappointed in them because we are going to visit family for Christmas, and so I don't have my real Christmas tree up with all of my beautiful ornaments that I normally put up. I have this very fake tree because if I'm not going to have a real tree, I'm not going to have a real tree that's a fake tree that's trying to look real. So I got a tinsel tree that's literally silver, and I put just some really nice ornaments on it that I do like, but it's like just this skinny little tinsel tree. Yeah. And then I ordered these icicle lights that are like these plastic columns that the light kind of drips down through. And I saw them on something else and they looked amazing in a shopping center. And then I ordered them and they came and they were 2 different colors of white. So one of them's the warm white and one of them's the cold white. And they're hanging on one of my trees out front looking very pathetic. And I almost want to take them down, but I don't want to be the only house on the street that doesn't have lights.
Oh, so there's that peer pressure as well. Of having lights.
A little bit. But I'm still, clearly I'm not doing it to the level we normally do. And it's making me a little sad, but I am going to go see family. So I'm happy.
We don't have Christmas lights because we are my wife's birthday is the day after Christmas. So she's anti-Christmas.
She wants to celebrate her.
Yeah, but something that inspires me but also frustrates me. We live in a very high Hispanic neighborhood. And I would say, I know for the fact that there's just the amount of Hispanics who love Christmas and does so much for their house. I just love it because I just feel like I am aware of some of the stories and some of the undocumented stories that goes on in our neighborhoods, and just to see them get all going for Christmas, and then yet we don't support them in Texas, or we don't give they're proud to be a part of the American culture, yet we treat them like crap. That was basically, I was driving by their houses and they were all so excited to have Christmas lights, all the stuff, but I feel like we don't actually really support our people in Texas. So I was just man, this is weird.
I'm glad they're brightening up your neighborhood. That's nice.
Yeah. They're carrying the team for sure. They're carrying the team. But all right, so let's go ahead and dive into the first. Oh, here we're going to get into it hot. So let's go ahead and dive into the first story.
So the first story is a Texas Tribune article entitled "Texas Supreme Court Temporarily Halts Ruling Allowing Dallas Woman to Get an Abortion." And this is not focused on Fort Worth, but it affects us all. A Travis County district judge cleared the way for this woman to terminate her pregnancy, which her doctor believes is what needs to happen because she has a fetus that has a lethal abnormality. But the Texas Attorney General, in his glorious wisdom, requested a day earlier that the high court step in to intervene. And not only did he do that, he sent letters to the hospitals, the 3 hospitals at which this woman's doctor has privileges, and threatened legal action if they allowed the abortion to be performed in their facilities. And then they stopped her from doing this. And in the meantime, she's had to leave the state in order to get the medical care that her doctor and she both believe is in her best interests. And, I have never had this level of an issue with our healthcare system and rules and regulations that impact my ability to make decisions with my medical care providers. But I have had smaller issues where insurance companies have wanted to say something about my medical care. Yeah. And that alone, those little, inconveniences were frustrating to me. This just, I can't even wrap my brain around it. The fact that legislators in Austin are trying to impact decisions made between medical professionals. I mean, I talk about people being in office and not necessarily being experts in all the things and needing to rely upon experts in order to write good bills and carry forward rules and regulations for our state that will be beneficial to us. And in the city planning arena, those kind of things have negative impacts sometimes when they don't follow the recommendations of professionals. But in these situations, not following the recommendations of professionals is just, I don't know. I can't even tell you how upsetting this is.
No, and so if I'm understanding correctly, too, Paxton is taking all his time and energy to write to these hospitals, threaten them like life in prison.
Yeah, with fines, huge fines, and being thrown in jail.
And the lady's unborn child right now also isn't most likely going to survive, right? That's the reason why.
There's a lethal they have a lethal abnormality. They will not be able to survive. And she has children already and wants to have more children. And one of the things her doctor has said is that not handling this situation could lead her to not be able to have more children in the future. So it just seems horrendous. And I've had children, and, my opinions about abortion have ebbed and flowed over the years. After having children, I don't think anyone, even someone who is pro-choice, is pro-abortion. Nobody wants to have an abortion. But what we've done in Texas is just, in my opinion, completely to the extreme, where we are overriding decisions of doctors, medical professionals.
Yep. And how crazy is it that, the lady wants to have more kids, and now by preventing her to deal with this tough situation, you're going to prevent her even to extend that. That's that's the opposite of pro-life.
Yeah. It's preventing future life that she would like to bring into this world.
Yeah. So we just felt like this was a story we needed to bring up just because
it's been making Ann crazy.
Yeah. And it's made, the New York Times, it's made national news. CNN talked about it. There was also, this is also something that there was a recent filing as well in Kentucky on Friday. So this is the first time an actively pregnant adult woman has gone to court to get an abortion since Roe v. Wade in 1973. A similar case was filed in Kentucky on Friday, the article says.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think this is impacting, just anecdotally, is people wanting to practice medicine in Texas. Yeah. I know people who are looking to go to med school and are not super interested in practicing medicine here because of these kind of decisions. And I know people who, were born in Texas and are Texans who don't want to live here because of things like this. So,
and I'm just blown away that one, Republicans stay on this strategy, because what you're also seeing, when they were expecting a red wave with all these with the House seats and the Senate seats and all that stuff. But the red wave really didn't happen. But a lot of it had to do with because people showed out to
Because of this issue.
yeah, because of this issue. So you have this issue wrong as a party. And so I just don't know why you are so maniacal to do this. And especially a criminal, a guy who does so many illegal things. You're going to try to use the legal law and waste time on this. It's just people got too much time on their hands.
Talking about starting off with frustration.
Yeah.
Our first short story is very frustrating.
Well, let's talk about some hope. We got some Techstars cohort 2.
Yeah, and this was also touches on the medical field. So our Techstars Fort Worth startup had their second cohort, wound up their whole cohort with the individuals that participated in it making their pitches. And because I was the MC at one of the luncheons during Entrepreneurship Week, I now think I'm on the list over there with the Techstars folks. And so I got invited to come listen to the pitches, but I was really glad that I did because they were some really cool and interesting things. And these are some young people that are, for the most part, I think they were on the younger side, who are coming up with ideas of businesses and different ideas of things that address concerns that they have seen in their communities. And so many of their pitches are personal in nature, like they're wrapped around things that loved ones of theirs have had to confront. And then that was very fun the way they do it, because basically they said, this is not a state of the city address. This is literally, we want you to be pumped up for these people. We want you guys to stand up and clap every time a new person comes onto the stage and, encourage them. And they pointed out that some people are really good at doing public speaking and it comes to them naturally, and other people are so terrified it's almost at the same level as how scared they are of death.
Yeah.
But everybody did a great job.
The event is a culmination of an intensive 13-week program in which the startup founders receive hands-on mentorship, curated entrepreneurial content and programming, up to $120,000 in funding, and access to a vast network of mentors, investors, alumni, and influential corporate executives. Techstars is a global investment firm that provides access to capital, one-on-one mentorship. They have invested in 3,700 startups, combined market cap of $98 billion, which in hindsight, performance-wise, I don't know how I feel that being that impressive. But the firm was invited to Fort Worth as a part of its strategy to strengthen the city's entrepreneurial ecosystem. So as a part of the effort, the city also has partnered with Texas A&M, which is building its downtown campus. So they're trying to just really create innovation in spaces that we feel like we can do a good job in Fort Worth. And so physical health, we've had some wins in the past. And so now they're really trying to use our experience in our city to get some startups here, ideally, possibly also maybe stay here. And if they get local capital, local investments, now they're bringing people here, having employees move here and growing their businesses here. Any of them stand out to you that you remember? I see some of them are, different.
Yeah, but speaking to your point about what people could stay here and grow their business here, Mayor Maddie Parker was there, and she was encouraging them to remember where they got this start and got this support, and encouraging them to consider Fort Worth. But the first one was really impactful to me because I know someone who has lost a limb. But they're looking at oh no, that's not the first one on
Vessel
list.
prosthetics. Every 30 seconds in America, a leg is amputated. Yeah.
So my husband has a gentleman that works for him that had an amputation. And he rides a bike and does mini triathlons and all that kind of stuff. And so this inventor has come up with a sleeve that kind of contracts and loosens with the swelling that can occur in the limb, that the socket swells and contracts with any kind of swelling that occurs in the limb so that it doesn't cause chafing and those kind of things and limits their ability to use their limbs. And they said some of these limbs that don't have this kind of technology make it so negative for a person that they may go without a limb. And so that's not beneficial. But that one was the one that spoke to me. The first one was based on a woman who had a double mastectomy, proactively to prevent breast cancer because it had run in her family. And she said that one outcome of that is being cold all the time. And she came up with these warming devices that are not like a big, huge heating pad, but can be worn inside of your bra, and it doesn't impact the way that you look. And this is something that can be used for other things as well. Um, there was a there were several things that were like inserts in shoes. There was one specifically inserts in shoes, and some of them were looking for funding capital, and some of them were looking for like connections. So the sole insert one was looking for a college sports team to collaborate with, so that they could look at doing different things of these wearable insoles that measure performance and then can prevent injury, because he was saying he played lots of sports when he was young and had injuries based on just like impact. Yeah. So it wasn't like something that he had a huge fall or something that caused it, but just that impact. But if you're measuring that, then you can train better and smarter and maybe avoid some of those injuries.
And it's also important to know that because we have Techstars, the physical health accelerator, we're no longer the largest city without an accelerator. That was also one of the motivations. I did go to the first cohorts one, and it sounds similar to what you saw this time around. But I heard that these companies were a little bit more mature and more developed and experienced in the first group, so it shows that we're getting stronger. However, I also know that I don't know funding-wise what this could look like in the future, because I think it's only a 3-year contract where the city's putting, where city's putting money in. So who knows if we're going to actually still be doing this long term, but we will see.
Yeah, I think it's proof of concept, and if it's beneficial and the return on investment, that's kind of how Fort Worth does things. They want to do these public partnerships, but then they want to see a return on those funds. And what sometimes happens is it's, started by someone who is motivated and excited about it, and then if that person is no longer there, then it can peter out. And so I know that Mayor Parker has specifically said that the program she's looking at trying to make kind of the mayor's programs are things that she hopes are things that would not go out of favor when she's no longer in office. Yeah. And I think this may, her focus and emphasis on supporting startups and small businesses, I think with the numbers that we've looked at, that money that comes from startups is a pretty big number in comparison to trying to court big businesses to come here, or even businesses that already exist here. So hopefully that will be something that people will continue to think is a good thing to support. But it was fun to go to it, and it was interesting that I was over having coffee in the near South Side and saw like 2 of the people who'd been on the stage the night before presenting. I happened to be at the coffee shop that is in the same building as Techstars, but I wouldn't have recognized those people had I not been at the meeting the evening before. So
awesome. Well, glad you're able to go. I'm glad that you're leaning into your entrepreneurial interests.
I look at the entrepreneurship the same way as I do the arts. I am not an entrepreneur myself, but I support people who are. I am not an artist or creative myself, but I support people who are. So
what's cool about having you on events, like Jimmy barely left his house, but you go to like every event. So like, you went to Techstars, you went to the gentrification panel. How was that? The Fort Worth Report gentrification
panel? That
panel?
was good. They had they allowed people to submit questions ahead of time, and so it was truly a panel discussion where they were talking about the topic. I think that it's an important topic to talk about. I think the Fort Worth Report has another conversation coming up in January that will be true roundtable discussions focusing on ways of getting engaged. And there is a survey that they have out on the sign up for that, where you can check off topics that you're interested in, and they're partnering with some professors at TCU who have done a similar event at TCU several months ago that I felt like was one of the most well done engagement, allowing people to kind of have their voices be heard on various topics that I've ever seen done in Fort Worth. So wow. I think that is something that everybody should focus on. But the conversation about gentrification, I think, is so important, because I think what came out from all the speakers is decisions need to be made with the input from the folks that are impacted. And what I always ran into was people not necessarily being fearful of improvements coming to their neighborhood because they felt that it would cause displacement. And so I want to figure out ways, and I think the panel all want to figure out ways, and the city wants to figure out ways to have improvements come that don't displace. And so unless you're intentional about that, property values go up and displacement can happen. Unless you have some kind of ownership, if your landlord wants to try to rent to somebody else for more money, displacement can happen. So I think it was important to have those conversations, and I think they had good people on the panel to have those discussions.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you say I'm
also-
everywhere, because I'm not anywhere near as many places as I used to be. But if I compare myself to other people, I definitely am
You're not
a lot
in
of
office
places.
anymore. Yeah, you're not in office anymore.
Yeah.
So.
And my girlfriend called me today and she was like, I had so much to do the last few days. It's just like you. I feel like I'm in your head. She's like, I don't like it. I like maybe 2 things a day. That's it. That's all I can handle.
Yeah.
So it is a lot sometimes.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and dive into, we didn't have an episode last week. We had an interview the week before that. So we're behind on some transportation updates.
Yep. And
We cannot have our last episode together of 2023 and not talk about transportation, because we did have a big story.
And thankfully we did. So the Fort Worth Report has an article titled 26 million rail station could spur development in Northeast Fort Worth. So Fort Worth is looking at the Trinity Lakes development, and Trinity Metro is partnered with TRE, which is the train that goes back and forth between Dallas and Fort Worth. Not to be confused with, but many people do, Tex Rail that goes back and forth between Fort Worth and the airport. So the TRE station that used to be in Richland Hills is being decommissioned because Richland Hills is no longer partnering with Trinity Metro for public transportation. And that led to the opportunity to having a Trinity Railway Express station in Trinity Lakes. So Trinity Lakes is already a bit of a mixed-use, transit-oriented development area with a lot of housing that has been built and plans for commercial uses and such. But this station will serve that community. It's a small city right now. There within the development, there's 3,400 homes already there, and it's a good, solid community, and it's growing, and those mixed uses and services are going to be not only for the families in the area, but also the surrounding community. And there's a tax increment financing district for that area, and they're making some improvements to the roadways to service the station as well. And so they're actually having a meeting, I think this evening, but you won't hear about it since this pod won't drop until after it's been completed. But this development has been ongoing for quite some time, and Trinity Metro is eager to get this location up and running, and hoping that it will spur some additional transit-oriented development. And if you want to see somebody who's really taken advantage of train stations and had true transit-oriented development, you can just look to Grapevine to see what has built up around the train station there. And the hope is that this will happen in Trinity Lakes as well. And there's several other train stations in Fort Worth on North Side that could do a much better job of mixed-use transit-oriented development around them. Right now, I think there's some industrial zoning in those places that probably could be better served to be mixed-use transit-oriented development.
The city of Grapevine reported about a 25% increase in sales tax since 2020 citywide as a result of its Tex Rail station. That's almost a 40% growth within a 5-minute walk of the station and over 30% within a 10-minute walk. Yeah, I would imagine that would be a good investment for people to take transit more serious in the Metroplex. And so can you also give me what I was also when reading this, the whole what happened in Richland Hills and why did Richland Hills vote not to participate in transit?
I mean, it's a very small town, and I don't know if it's probably a budget savings initiative. I'm not sure what the level of bus service was for them or if it was just the train stop that they had. But their voters voted to not put the half cent, or I don't know exactly what their funding level was, but they voted to stop doing that.
Yeah, I just wonder. Yeah, I just found it interesting because Richland Hills is growing, but
I mean, North Richland Hills has the partnership with Trinity Metro on the 2 stations that are in North Richland Hills, and they have been planning for transit for years and years and years. I actually did some existing land use and comprehensive planning work for them back in the early 90s that identified those train stations. And so every time I go through on those train stations, I'm like, I did land use right here. And they were planning this many, many years ago.
Mm-hmm. But now, can you also hit the latest White House grants that shows more kind of investment into rail across the country in Texas?
Right. There was a Streets Blog USA post or article saying that the latest White House grants show promise for a real interstate rail system. And that doesn't speak specifically to what's going on in Fort Worth, but it is encouraging that they could award a staggering $8.2 billion in 10 major rail projects across the country, including funding to complete the long-sought high-speed rail link between Greater Los Angeles to both San Francisco and Las Vegas, and a third high-speed rail between Raleigh and Richmond. And then I know that there was a post shared by Nowtown on Instagram that the Federal Railroad Administration has announced that funding of several intercity rail studies, including 5 that could impact Fort Worth as part of the Corridor Identification and Development Program. The intent of the ID program is to guide the development of new and enhanced intercity passenger rail service that will help bolster economic growth throughout the country. 2 of the selections that impact Fort Worth include 2 high-speed rail corridors to Houston, one from Dallas to Houston, administered by TxDOT, and the other from Fort Worth to Houston, administered by the North Central Texas Council of Governments. So those are 2 stories that are talking about rail that could be beneficial to Fort Worth. And there was also a story that I didn't send to you, I don't think, but that is kind of touches on transportation. And that was speaking to the Fort Worth Airport, DFW Airport, was talking about the fact that they need to look at their electric grid so that they can support car rental places, Hertz and Avis, I think, switching their whole fleet over to electric. And in order to do that, they need to have, a powerful electric grid, which the whole state basically needs. And so I responded to the article and said, I'm all for switching over to electric, but the spokesperson for the airport said we need to make these decisions about making sure that we're being sustainable and what's in the best interest. And not one single mention in that entire article spoke to the fact that there are other ways to get to and from the airport besides renting a car, like taking a train. And so I was like, if you really are trying to be carbon neutral, it's not having a bunch more stuff like individuals going around in their electric cars versus just regular gas cars. And that maybe we could have some more emphasis on trains.
Looking at this map, it's pretty cool. Like looking at where the high speed rail would be, the new conventional rail, and how it just could possibly connect everything. I mean,
all the places that you could get in the country without having to go stand in TSA lines at the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, now they're telling you to get to the airport 2 hours early for a domestic flight and 3 hours early for international travel. Yeah.
What's the kind of the time horizon? This this always takes a lot longer. We're talking 10, 20 years.
I mean, these are what they're talking about here is planning. So I'm not sure when things would be actually implemented and built. We've spoken about the proof of concept high speed between Dallas and Fort Worth in anticipation of the Houston leg. And I think that that's closer because there's already a lot of the right of way and all of that. But I'm not sure what the timeline is for all of this built out. But it's kind of like looking back at what we did with our interstate highway system. This is like an interstate rail system. And we do a lot of freight on rail across the whole country, but passenger rail has been less. And I'm personally encouraged by the fact that we're looking at multimodal transportation across the whole country, not just in individual cities.
All righty, well, let's go ahead and dive into the big story. So the big story we're going to address here, we're going to go through a lot of different tabs highlighting different candidates. We're going to really just focus on the Democratic candidates as it just fits for our pod. There are 64 candidates running to represent Tarrant County in 2024. Tarrant County voters will be at the ballot box in March, and then also obviously in November. There are more than 25 local, state, and federal races with direct ties to Tarrant County. Of the 64 candidates who have filed to be on the ballot, there are 15 contested races. The party-specific primary election in March precedes the general election in November. Winning candidates from each party will face off in the general election.
So they have the primaries are coming up, and they give key dates in this article, which is one of the reasons we wanted to share it with folks, because people talk about not knowing when elections are happening. So this is a Fort Worth Report article, and they let us know that the December 11th filing deadline was just this last week, and that filing period, I think, was open just from November 11th to December 11th. And some of these folks didn't announce that they weren't planning to run until like October. So you often don't have a whole lot of lead time to know that a seat is going to be not have an incumbent in it, which makes a big difference in people's decision making about what they will run for. So hopefully some of these people had a heads up before that. But then February 5th is the deadline to register to vote. February 20th is the first day of early voting. March 1st is the last day of early voting, and March 5th will be election day for the primaries.
So what we're going to do is the Fort Worth Report has compiled a list of candidates running. And so we're just going to go dive through each section, and then we're going to do a little overview of the person running who's running as the Democratic person. But before I dive in, that's what I was going to realize I was going to ask you. If you vote, a lot of my friends or people here in Texas are talking about how they're going to vote in the Republican primary. So if you voted in a Republican primary,
if there's a runoff, you have to vote in that Republican runoff. When it comes to the general election, there's no separation because the final people that are going to be on the ballot are on the ballot, and it's no longer you have to go stand in this line or that line and vote only for one party or the other. Yeah. But if you vote in a primary, you are required to vote in that primary's runoff if there is a runoff.
Yeah. And so like in March, you're going into and choosing Democrat or Republican, and you have to vote that whole day.
The runoff wouldn't be that same day, but if there are any runoffs in those elections, which some of these might have because there's multiple candidates of the party running. So yes, you can't go in and try to influence the primary and then duck out. You got to stay with that primary.
Yeah. So what I guess what I'm asking is like, if I go in to do the Republican primary because I want to vote for Nikki Haley over Donald Trump, I then can't vote for a Democrat in the rest of these seats because I'm in the Republican primary.
Yeah, they will not be on your ballot.
Gotcha.
You will only have Republican candidates on your ballot, and all of the Democratic candidates in all of the other races will be on the ballot that you will not have access to.
Yeah. Well, I know these Democratic people probably doesn't want to hear me say that, but that was literally seriously people I know are like, oh, I might just vote Republican this year just to try to prevent Trump.
I don't think that worked in the past. I'm not really a fan of that idea.
Yeah. And so, but let's go ahead and dive in and go through. So Tarrant County Sheriff is up for a re-election. Bill Wayborn is going to run for it, obviously. And then Patrick Moses is the Democrat running against Bill Wayborn. Patrick Moses is a Democrat. He cites that he is big on public safety, professional management. Moses will work to create a civilian review commission. He is a pastor at First Missionary Baptist Church. He previously worked as a federal law enforcement officer for several decades through the Federal Protective Services. He's a member of the Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission. He previously ran an unsuccessful campaign for the U.S. House District 6 in 2021. So what's just kind of important here, he's leading his campaign, being concerned about all the deaths in Tarrant County jails. So that's that election.
So we have a choice in that election. So there's one of each.
So Precinct 1 commissioner, This seems like probably the most spiciest of the races.
Yeah, because our current county commissioner, Roy Charles Brooks, is not running again. So it's an open seat without an incumbent. And so in this seat, there is one Republican running, Michael Barber, and 3 Democrats, Mia Hall, Kathleen Hicks, and Roderick Miles.
Mia Hall is on the Crowley ISD School Board, Fort Worth Zoning Commissioner. Hall has cited her experience working as a school board member, educator, and volunteer as a reason she is the right choice for Precinct 1. She has secured an endorsement from District 5 Council member Gina Bivens. Now, Kathleen was a former city council member for District 8. She ran for another position, and so then Kelly Allen Gray took that seat. She ran again against Kelly Allen Gray, and Kelly Allen Gray kept her seat, so she never got to go back to her city council seat. But what do you know of Kathleen Hicks?
So she was on the council back when Joel Burns was on the council. It's been some time, like you said, because it was 2005. She served from 2005 to 2012 and ran for a congressional seat, which is what she left her council seat to run for, but then apparently ran again, but Kelly Allen Gray beat her. I haven't had a lot of contact with her since she was on council, and the only thing that I was involved in back then, I mean, I was on the zoning commission back then, so I was making recommendations to the city council, but I was the mayor's appointee, so I didn't have a whole lot, and she wasn't my council member. I think some of the things I saw in an announcement from her were hearkening back to her service on the city council. So I don't know exactly what she has been doing since then.
Yeah. And then the other candidate is Democrat Roderick Miles Jr., who works for Roy Brooks as
he currently works in the county commissioner's
executive
office.
Administrator. Yeah. And he's also on the City Plan Commission. The next one is Precinct 3 Commissioner.
Which a lot of changes happened in that one. I was hearkening back to a previous article that had listed 3 people running for that seat that are none of which filed. So I guess they all were thinking about it and they didn't. Precinct 3 had Mr. Barnes, who was the former head of the Republican Party running. It had Jimmy Pozzoli, who is a Fort Worth police officer running. And I can't remember the third person, but 3 people were all saying they were going to run. And then I looked here, and 2 completely different people are listed. So Matt Krause and Laura Lehman.
Yeah, and so I guess Matt Krause running
just knocked everybody else out.
Yeah, they're like, okay.
Because I think all 3 of those other people were Republicans and had expressed interest in those seats, and none of them are running.
Yeah.
Matt's got pretty big name recognition, having served down in Austin.
Yeah. And so Laura...
And ran for district attorney. He's run for a lot of things.
So Laura Lehman, to tell you a little bit about Laura. Laura is a small business owner.
She says, if elected, I'll work tirelessly towards fiscally responsible solutions that will develop infrastructure growth, support public health efforts, and create opportunities for affordable housing and childcare. She is the only Democrat who has filed to run in Precinct 3. And as we said before, Matt Krause is the Republican former state legislator who is running for 3. She promises to provide oversight to the Tarrant County Jail, believes that judges and commissioners should work together while prioritizing the issues of Tarrant County stakeholders rather than follow a one-sided agenda. That kind of plays into my thing of when you are elected, regardless of whether you were elected Republican or Democrat, once you're in office, you represent everybody.
Yep. And she lives in Colleyville, and she did some work as an educator as well. I mean, obviously, with going up against Matt Krause, that's going to be a pretty tough one. Tax assessor collector is the next one on the list. That's 2 Republicans. Rick Barnes, who did mention they were going to run for Precinct 3, I guess decided to take the tax assessor collector, which is interesting because I guess
they're both Republicans.
Yeah, and running against an incumbent. So Wendy Burgess, I guess, is, I don't know, not Republican enough for Rick Barnes. And so he's jumping into the race.
I guess so.
So U.S. House District 6 has 3 Republicans, and then it has 1 Democrat, John Love 3. John Love is a financial advisor based in Hubbard, previously served on the Midland City Council in West Texas, as well as the president of the Texas Municipal League, a nonprofit association of more than 1,000 incorporated cities. So you have that.
So this district is not in Tarrant County, so nobody in Fort Worth would be able to vote in it. It's Ellis and Navarro counties.
Yeah.
And southeast corner. Oh, I guess it does have the southeast corner of Tarrant County, so, and parts of Arlington and Mansfield.
Yeah. District 12, you have a pretty big race. This one's big because of
Kay Granger announcing that she's not going to run. That was the person who announced in October that she wasn't going to run. And this is like a big thing to run for. And so if you're planning to run for this kind of a seat and you don't know the incumbent is going to step out, it's kind of hard to get your feet under you to run. But as we mentioned, I think in a previous podcast, Craig Goldman is running for this seat, and he has a pretty big campaign
bankroll.
Yes, he has.
And just seems to be the endorsement by Maddie. And then you do have two Democrats. What I like about those two Democrats, Trey Hunt and Sebastian Gehrig, they're both Gen Zers. So it's cool to just see young people running for office.
I think, we talk about how we haven't really kind of developed a bench. And when seats do become available, and even in going through this list, we'll see some places where people have nobody running against them. And I think that unless you have young people being willing to try it and step in, then I think that you end up with all the older people representing a very much community that's getting younger and younger and younger. And I don't think necessarily we older folks speak for these younger folks.
Trey Hunt was the one who ran against Kay Granger last time and got nearly 40% of the votes. So that was still pretty impressive.
I think he may have run more than once against her in the past. I think so.
And then the other gentleman, Sebastian, is a veteran and small business owner who will be running. So cool to see the young people also running in the race. U.S. House District 24 is Beth Van Dyne.
She's the incumbent.
Yep, and then there's two Democrats running against her. So Sam Epler and Francine Lai. Sam Epler.
He's a principal at North Lake Early College High School in Irving, and the first Democrat to announce his campaign. He filed on December 5th.
The 27-year-old Epler is the youngest principal working in Dallas ISD and recently earned a master's degree in education from Southern Methodist University. I love when educators run for office as well. That's always, I think, something that usually works out for people. And I'm also loving the youthfulness that he will possibly bring to his campaign. Francis Lai is a court coordinator for the 134th Judicial District Court. She says, growing up, I learned the value of hard work, and I know what it means to fight for what is right. As a mother, I'm committed to leaving a better world for my children and future generations. This is why I'm running for Congress, to make sure that every person has a voice and that our values are represented in Washington. U.S. House District 25, that's just two Republicans, but Roger Williams, the incumbent, Matthew Lucci is running against as a new candidate. U.S. House District 26 has 7 people running, one of those being a Democrat, Ernest Lineberger III.
People must be upset with the incumbent if there is one. Is there an incumbent in that race? Because that's 5 Republicans all running.
Yep. U.S. House District 30.
It's an open seat.
Gotcha. U.S. House District 30 will have the Jasmine Crockett, who's been, doing a lot of great work, and then Jared Davis running against her. House District 33 has Mark Vesey who as the incumbent, and then 2 Republicans running against Vesey, Patrick David Gillespie and Kurt Schwab. The State Board of Education District 11 has the incumbent, but then 1 Democrat, Raina Glasser. I can't tell you too much about Raina because their info is not linked on the article. Texas Senate District 10 has Andy Morris and Phil King Phil King is the Republican and the incumbent. Andy Morris is an immigration lawyer and works for World Relief Texas, a refuge assistance organization. He was previously a city council member in Aledo before being called to be a missionary, according to his website. His website says he's passionate about pitting good policy over partisan politics. Andy is committed to building a Texas that is a beacon of hope, justice, love, prosperity, and community. Texas Senate District 12, we have Tan Parker, Republican incumbent. There is Stephanie Draper, the Democrat. What we know about Stephanie based off the article is she's a business owner. She says she's running because we are having issues with low pay, high utilities costs, high food costs, homelessness, mental health crisis, and the rise of fentanyl deaths with not enough resources. Parker first won the seat in 2022 and is also facing an uncontested primary. The two will face off in the November general election.
Got a whole slew of incumbents that are unchallenged. So we have the State House District 90, Ramon Romero is running again, unopposed. Texas House District 92, Solomon Bujani is running again, unopposed. He's a former Euless City Council member. Texas House District 101, Chris Turner is a Democrat. These are all Democrats unopposed.
Well, that's what I like about the Republican Party. You got District 95, Nicole Collier running as an incumbent. What I like about them, they know what races they can't win.
So
they just
don't
even try.
Democrats alone.
Yep, they just know which ones they can't win, and they don't even try. But, I think what's funny is Ann didn't want to do this, but I was like just talking about the bench, of the Democratic Party. And like I'm going through these names, and I'm not saying I don't know anything of these people. We're going to see what kind of bench we have this upcoming election, what kind of talent, what kind of energy, what kind of motivation do these people bring to their campaign to get people up and voting. Right. And so we'll see what kind of talent there is, but it just seems like, Republicans find people like Rick Barnes to step back in, or the Matt Krauses to step back in for another thing.
They even find people to run against their own people.
Exactly.
So I think the Democratic Party just gets discouraged. They think maybe there's just no chance. And like you said, these races that are uncontested are seats that, are pretty solidly Democrat. And there's been a couple others that have flipped back and forth, but in the last redistricting, they got put solidly in the Republican side. So Phil King's seat, which is my representative, used to be, a toss-up. Wendy Davis was in that seat. Beverly Powell was in that seat. Connie Burton was in that seat. So it's gone back and forth. But it's not necessarily going back and forth anymore because of redrawing those lines.
Yeah. And those redrawn of lines made it hard for toss-ups. Makes sense.
Texas House District 97. That's Craig Goldman's old seat.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 2 Democrats and 3 Republicans, I think, running for that.
Diane Simmons is a photographer and presiding election judge for Tarrant County. She told the report that her priorities are 3 E's: education, equality, and the economy. The other person is Carlos Walker. Walker is the director of Fort Worth ISD's Family Action Center, which provides community resources and mental and behavioral health assistance. He worked as a classroom teacher and administrator for nearly 2 decades.
And I know him.
Awesome. And then for District 9, D8, we have Scott Bryan running as the Democrat. He will run against Giovanni Capriglione from Keller. White currently works as an IT consultant, according to his filing. The Fort Worth report was not able to find contact information, website, or social media accounts. But this is what I'm saying. Our people are like business, somewhat business owners of something. Like I feel like the Republican
touch on education,
but no one's ever been a politician because we don't win. So it's like it's tough to get when
experience.
You go, and then you go against these guys who's like, oh, I've been in 3 seats for 3 years. It's tough for an average Texan to give chance to a lady who says her expertise was a photographer. And I'm not saying,
But she's been an election judge as well. So
yeah,
she's had some experience with.
She's probably the best.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, we talked a little bit about the fact that when you don't know that races are going to be open, but I had supporters when I was in office who used to say that every elected official should have somebody run against them every single time. And as someone who is in office, you really don't want to hear that from your supporters especially. But I think that if you are going to have folks that get good at knowing the issues and then can speak well in public forums and run a good campaign, having some experience running is helpful. I mean, the very first time I ever ran for office, I'd never done anything like that in my life. I had no idea what it was going to take. I ended up being successful at it, but I think that there is a reason for folks to kind of pay attention, educate themselves, be informed. And this article just has this laundry list of people that you need to at least be familiar with, the ones that are going to be on your individual ballots. And so while not all of these have links to information where you can learn, this is the very beginning. The filing period just ended. And so we have plenty of time to get ourselves educated and informed. And that's what we encourage all of you to do. And I'm sure we'll have more to say about it as these races go on.
I love it. And I want to make sure I highlight, we only missed 2 Democrat profiles on here, so I just want to go ahead and do it. District 94, Denise Wilkerson. She is a 25-year resident of Arlington. She currently serves as a chair of Arlington Mayor's Women Advisory Council and legislative and legal liaison for the Committee on People with Disabilities.
And she's running against Tony Tinderholt.
Which means?
Oh, we don't need to say anything else.
And then there is Perla Borjoquez. She will run for Texas District 93. What we know about her is she said she's running because the legislation being passed in Austin is making our communities less safe. I'm all about putting families first, empowering our educators, improving the economy. State Rep Nate Scatsline currently holds the seat, which I also believe was making a pitch to run for Kate Granger's seat, but didn't actually
He
sign.
was another one of the people that made a very long statement of why he wasn't going to run for the seat after he made that decision. Instead of like Mayor Parker just said, I'm not running, period.
Yeah. What I love about Borjoquez, she's only been a Fort Worth resident since 2019, is a former paralegal and educator. So like at this thing, I also like it when people can feel called to show up and participate in elections even as a new person. I think that's oftentimes you see people who are from here and the legacy people run. So to only be here in 2019 and run for office is pretty impressive. So pretty cool. Good luck to every single person who's going to be running.
Yeah, I mean, what I said before, when you were talking about possibly, starting off with some negative comments about people who have filed to run, and you said I didn't want to do that. What I specifically meant was it takes a whole lot of gumption and courage to put your name on a ballot.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to, especially not having dived into these folks individually yet and gotten myself informed, I didn't want to start off with discouraging comments because I want to encourage anybody who is willing to do that. Yeah. It's a tough thing to do, and you put yourself out there in a really public manner, and the world is not always kind. And so you open yourself up to a lot of criticism and a lot of undue criticism and a lot of personal things. And so I hope that like you said, wish all of these people the best of luck. And I hope that everybody kind of runs good, solid campaigns with their strengths and stays away from attacking what other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move into wins and losses. We'll do our best to try to get some of these people on the pod as well, to just kind of get to learn about them as well. So, but we're going to go ahead and move into wins and losses, our final wins and losses of the year. As again, we will not be doing a pod the remainder of this year. Our next pod won't be until like January 22nd.
Is it comes you're going to be gone all the beginning of January?
I'm gone from December 15th to January 15th.
Oh, well, I would have been able to do it if I had the technical ability to do it, but
I can't teach you.
No, that's fine. We can take a break.
Yeah.
We can take a break. We'll come back, just refreshed and ready to do some of the things that you mentioned today. Like maybe we could have come up with like hot takes on the whole 2023 or
trends.
Speculations of what we think is going to happen in 2024.
Yeah.
But having just, sat down here, I thought, I'm not prepared for that. I'm going to have to think a little bit about that. But this break will give us a chance to maybe put some thought.
And we
into
talked
that.
about looking at a list of interviewees, people to come on.
Yep.
Like
Absolutely.
I think we got to get some.
I think sprinkling some people in so that people don't get too tired of just the two of us talking.
Yeah, if we could once a month have a guest, I think that will be good for us.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we'll make a list of people who we think will be great.
Don't be sending us your names. We're going to make our own list.
Yes, that is
fine.
also
If you
true.
want to send your name, that's fine. But that doesn't mean you're getting on.
Yes. All righty. So let's go ahead and move into wins and losses. We start with our losses so we can end on a high note. What is your loss, Ann?
So I feel like it's a little bit piling on because it seems like every time you open up your social media this last couple of weeks, there's been people lamenting closures of beloved businesses, and there were a couple of losses of some music venues that people were very unhappy to hear about. And I am right there alongside. I want to support local all that I can. I'm not a big drinker, and I'm not a big go out late at night and listen to loud music. So as much as I can support music venues, I do. And I encourage you to support them if you can as well. Lola's and Twilight both closed, and I think there's a lot of folks that are
So sad
about that. In the midst of all that, though, I did learn today that a business that had posted on social media that they were struggling, a place called Dusty Biscuit over on South Main, posted today to say, hey, y'all, when we reached out and told everybody we were struggling, your support allowed us to continue. We scaled back some hours, but we've remained open and we are not closed. Yeah. And so he was saying some people heard that first struggle announcement and thought we were closed, but we're not. So all this goes to mean you just need to support your local businesses. I think we talked a little bit about Shop Small Saturday and whether or not I went out on Saturday and did that and felt bad that some of my friends that own businesses felt unsupported because they didn't get as many people on that Saturday as they could. But, the important thing is not just doing it once a year. Yeah. It's doing it all the time. And if you look on Google Maps or Apple Maps and you see something that doesn't tell you the full story of whether something is open or not, give them a call, swing by, ask somebody else, and don't add to the fray of misinformation if you're not sure about things. Don't run around and say things are closed when they're not. I listened to a pod just recently where there was a whole lot of speculation about things being closed, one of which was saying that shipping and receiving had not reopened with anything, and that's not true. Distribution bar is opened up in shipping and receiving. So
oh wow, really?
Yeah. And there are openings as well.
So how does that work? Like, how does that work when like someone, I think that's where I'm so confused as someone who doesn't get restaurant business at all. How do you close but then create something that's similar? Like, is it the same owner that does shipping and receiving to now
No,
Distribution Bar?
I think Distribution Bar is owned by another group of owners, but they've either, I don't know if they own the building and they've just taken over a lease or if they, if it's a lease.
I'm just always blown away when I see an entrepreneur like start something and it fails and they like
something else similar goes in.
Well, or they'll go start another one like that. And then, so they're like go into this building, they remodel it exactly how they want to. Then 6 months later it closes, but then they run and go do it again. And I'm just like,
maybe they're good at convincing people to fund them.
Yeah,
hopefully these people are doing their homework and figuring out if this is a serial failure situation or if it's something that they should be investing in.
The Lola's one makes sense because the Lola's was in that death location on
Everybody
Berry.
says that. It could be great. There's going to be a train station on the other side of Berry from there.
Okay, well in 2045,
it is a little bit of an island right now.
2045 will be a great time to do it.
I'm sad because they had two of the best markets there. They had a rock and roll rummage sale every month, and they had a community vendor thing. And I walked to that thing from my house. Yeah, and it is a bit of a walk. It's a couple of miles, but I was trying to support in that way because the late night music thing, like I said, is not really my jam, but I do like the markets, and they had.
And then Twilight was, I love the
space,
the restaurant in there. They have like a little restaurant in there, but you have po' boys, they're so good, and the fries were good. Me and my wife would always go there. That would be like our hangout.
The last time I went there was a huge rainstorm and we were sitting outside, but there was a way to get inside even with the rainstorm.
I don't know. I think Fort Worth hypes its commercial real estate. It hypes its small businesses. And I think we're just too spread out. And so doing the same math on like how much of what we should have.
But you know
It's
what
just
keeps
not real.
opening? Coffee shops. Like, I don't know how many
Yeah,
coffee shops
and
we
they
can
don't
support,
close.
but there's
guess
a ton of
Arcadia
them, and
closed.
new ones are coming in. New ones are coming in. There's an Arcadia still, though, that's being remodeled over on, no, it's not. It's called something else. Never mind. Sorry. I was
Yeah.
getting all my coffee shops confused because there's so many of them.
Yeah,
But- I mean, Leaves is moving into Stir Crazy Baked Goods, so
Oh, I
it's
didn't know
not
that.
going away. It's owned by the same people. They're just going to consolidate, and Leaves is now going to be at Stir Crazy Baked Goods, and that'll open up a cool space on St. Louis in the Leaves location that could be a cool coffee shop or something else.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. So my loss is a loss that I'm trying to figure out a stretch of how I'm going to talk about this. I read a blog. I follow a couple blogs like where I pay for to be a part of their membership, and one of my favorite blogs is No Opinion. His name is Noah, and so but he was talking about he was basically just talking about the need to modernize our defense and military approach, and there was just a lot of crazy things that I believe it connects to Fort Worth. And so like the real kicker here that I learned here is today the U.S. can only produce 30,000 artillery shells a month. In 1995, we were producing 867,000 a month. It also was talking about how China can produce 200 times as many ships as the U.S. And it also just was really talking about the lack of innovation in defense. And so what I want to actually share here is the data around here. And the reason why this is a story is because a lot of the people who are benefiting from the military industrial complex and how we operate is Lockheed Martin, is Boeing, is Raytheon, people who have very strong ties to Fort Worth and some type of connection. But what you've seen that since in 1985, the U.S. had 3 million workers in the defense industry. That number is now 1.1 million. Now, what you care about how much we should invest in defense, that's not what I'm here to discuss. But when you look at the amount of vendors that would do an RFP, it's down 22%. And most of that is small businesses. And so overall, the Department of Defense has lost 43% of its small business contracts. And so I just, and it's because of the Mega Five. And we need to really reimagine what it looks like to protect and support and allow us to have life without war. But I just think the whole old school way of doing this, it's just gotten really expensive. It's gotten really mundane. And when you have only 5 real players, like there's this graph that I'll put in the thing that just really blew my mind. But it's just basically everything that we make in America is just done by 5 companies. And then it just puts a bottleneck on innovation. So, we got to start really thinking of the world of the military technology in a very different way, very, very fast, from autonomous weapons, space weapons, hypersonic lasers, submarine detection, all these things that we're not doing. And so I call out that, hey, we have Techstars who did a physical health accelerator. If we no longer have that, or if we need to add another accelerator, it needs to be a defense one. The fact that we have Lockheed Martin here, yet they don't provide any innovation, or we've never heard of someone leaving Lockheed Martin to start a company that changes the world. It just shows you how lack of support they are on creating innovation, and they need to step up their stuff and do more to modernize this space.
And as someone who is raised by Quakers, I'm not going to chime in on innovations in the defense industry.
So let's go ahead and move into wins.
So my win is that Fort Worth has added 2 communities to the neighborhood improvement program, and they've released a new report card system. And I just think that this program, which has been around since 2017, it was launched in 2017, where they picked one neighborhood each year based on data. So there was no way for individual council members to lobby to have their neighborhood chosen. I mean, if they knew things about the neighborhood, that information could be taken into consideration. But they literally looked at the data. And the very first neighborhood that was chosen was Stop 6, and then Ash Crescent, and then Northside, and then Rosemont was chosen in 2020, and that was the first one in District 9. Como the year after that, Las Vegas Trail, and Historic Marine has been the one in 2023. But next year, they will be choosing 2 neighborhoods because they have doubled the investment that they're making in the neighborhood program. And this program, I think, so both of the neighborhoods that were chosen in this first year of choosing 2 neighborhoods are in the new District 11, represented by Jeanette Martinez, and that includes Worth Heights and Seminary. And so, like I said, this is based on data, looking at the neighborhood and the neighborhoods that are the most in need. And so that brings funding from the city to make improvements in infrastructure, things that the city is responsible for in neighborhoods that have been historically underserved and not gotten the attention that maybe some other neighborhoods have. And so I just think that this is an excellent program, and I think that they're staying true to staying true to the way that they choose these neighborhoods and attaching a scorecard to show how the funds have been used and those improvements that have been made. And I think it also, because of the way they do it, where they meet with the communities and talk about what they see as things that they are lacking and would like these funds to go towards, it helps build community in these neighborhoods as well, and helps them have a partnership with the city to bring these needed improvements.
I love it. As a District 11 resident, I'm all here for it. There you go. Look at us.
But it wasn't because a bunch of people went down there and lobbied for these neighborhoods. It was based on data.
Exactly. All right. So my win, it's. I feel like my win and my loss this week was hard because
because you're already checked out and ready to go on your trip.
Exactly. And the news cycle right now is just kind of I mean, holidays and
holidays.
Yeah, and so people just start taking breaks. So you could just there's not a lot of good stuff to talk about right now. But my win is I'm trying to see how I'm going to say it. So, Kanye West had an album come out. He is not the win. He is not, that's not it. But he has a song on the new album called River, and it's a remix to Leon Bridges. I haven't heard the song because we're talking on Tuesday. The album drops Friday, but there's a song called River, and it's Leon Bridges singing River at least. So he's either taking the song and like mixing it. And I guess to me, why that's big is more like, I just believe that like Leon Bridges and his team was really trying to start working with larger artists. And so like, I guess to revamp a classic song is cool. Like, congrats. Like, I'm just thinking that's a big deal to just get one of your songs reproduced on another album by one of the best producers out there.
And I also saw a post by Abraham Alexander saying, I think that Serena Williams was backstage at his concert, at a recent concert that he was doing, and somebody caught a video of her dancing to his song. And he posted on his socials saying that he lost track of his lyrics because he looked over and saw that, I think it was Serena Williams, but it might have been Venus. One of the Williams sisters.
I think it was Venus.
Was it Venus?
Yeah. I remember seeing it too. But it's just cool when you see Fort Worth culture being infused in other places and influencing other people. So kudos to our artists and why we should invest in our artists. So, all right, beautiful people. Well, that is a wrap. You'll have a long time before you have to hear our beautiful voices again talk about transportation, talk about neighborhoods, talk about politics. But I'm excited to have a month off because I think we'll come in fresh with different perspectives and a whole different kind of hustle for guests, as we'll be in an election year. So we're really excited to rumble with all of you in 2024.
Looking forward to it.